I spent the last 18 months trying to answer one question. How do you actually grow your side delts? Because my shoulders haven't always looked like this. And most people would ask, what shoulder exercises did I use? Maybe just some different lateral raise variations, or more overhead pressing, or some secret shoulder workout. But looking back on it, exercises were probably the least important thing that I changed. I made the most progress when I realized that I just wasn't treating my side delts like a priority. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what I changed, how I built up to training side delts 5 times per week, the rules I used to know I was recovered and ready for more volume, and some of the exercises I used to get me the best results. Everyone wants to grow their side delts. It's the thing that really makes your physique pop, but no one's training is ever set up to make them grow. People just chuck them on to the end of a session when they're tired. They'll skip them when time is tight. They'll only be doing 4 sets a week, and they're never tracking whether they're actually getting stronger over time. There's a reason most guys walk around with a big chest and big arms. It's because they're the fun muscles. People just always train them with their mates. They're always trying to challenge each other to get stronger. They'll be tracking what their bench press PRs are and things like that. But if you always treat your delts like an afterthought, they're always going to look like that. They're never going to match the rest of your physique. And if there's one thing this whole process taught me, it's that getting into your absolute best shape needs a structure and a process. And that is exactly why I created my free 12-week build guide. It includes all of the training and nutrition that you need to get into the best shape that you've ever been in. The link is in the description below. It takes 30 seconds to download. So the first thing I changed was actually really simple, and it had nothing to do with my volume or my exercises. It was just that I changed the order around so I could train my side delts when they were a bit more fresh. And you'd be surprised how little difference this actually makes to the rest of your training. I'm even putting side delts before my push days now, and I'm not noticing any difference in my strength at all. And I'm finding that training them fresh is improving my focus, my mind-muscle connections better, my techniques better, progressions seem a lot easier as well. I started treating them like a muscle that I actually wanted to grow, but that still wasn't the thing that made the biggest difference. I needed to start looking at my volume, but instead of just picking some random number out of the air and deciding in advance, I started to let my recovery dictate when I was ready for more. Most of you probably pick a number between 10 and 20 sets and say, that's what I'm going to be doing. But the problem is, if you don't let recovery decide this for you, you could be doing too much or too little. So here's basically what I did to adapt to being able to train side delts 5 times per week. They are a small muscle group and they can take a beating, but you are going to have to build up to this. You can't just go straight in at 5 times a week with 4 sets of each. So I started off with 2 sessions per week at around 2 to 4 sets, and then I asked myself some questions. So am I feeling recovered? Is my performance still trending upwards? Am I getting any joint pain or soreness the next time I come to train my side delts? If these things checked out, I would add an extra day and then a couple of sets to that day, and then I would repeat the process. So if I add my 3rd day with 2 extra sets on it, am I still recovering? If so, maybe then add an extra set to that one. So 2 sets becomes 3, and then when I hit 4, I will add another day, and so on and so forth. So I think the key message here is I didn't just decide to do 5 times per week training on my side delts. I earned the right to do that by gradually adapting to it, and the body's been responding very well. But training them more often exposed a little bit of a problem that I wasn't expecting. If you're liking this video and want more practical muscle building tips and advice, then make sure to subscribe, because this is what the channel is all about. I actually don't think the exercises I was doing were the key to my growth, but some were definitely better than others. My absolute favorite exercise that I found was the laying dumbbell lateral raise, and that is just because I find you get so much tension in that bottom stretch position. I tend to just work up to around about halfway, just because I find that the tension starts to drop off above that point, and the stimulus that you get from it is just unreal. I really try to focus on a sweeping motion, almost like pushing away to the opposite wall, rather than a pulling up kind of motion. I think that gets a bit more trap involved. So I've really slowed these down recently. I've actually reduced quite a lot of the load. I sometimes tend to close my eyes and just focus on really pulling through the side delt. And these ones are they just feel absolutely perfect. This one's quite similar to the single arm cable lateral raise, but only when the cable is around hip height. That's what's going to challenge your side delt in the lengthen range. Obviously, we know from the studies the length and range is probably going to create more growth. So I tend to favor the cable being up at hip height for those. And I also do the behind back cable lateral raise just to hit the delts from a bit of a different angle, still at hip height, challenging that length and range. And there's also one I found recently that I'm absolutely loving, and it's the laying cable Y raise. And I feel like you're just so fixed against the bench that it prevents any other unnecessary movements, and you can just really feel the side delts with this, so you should definitely give it a try. And then I like to sprinkle in a few more short and bias movements, so the dumbbell lateral raise and any kind of machine lateral raise. And the reason these are a little bit more short and biased is that if you think about when you raise a dumbbell away from the body, gravity's pointing down. There's going to be most effective gravity on the dumbbell when the arm is out to the side, whereas when it's down at the bottom where the delt is most stretched, there's not going to be any tension on the delt in that position, right? And I think the key thing is here, I just picked exercises that I enjoyed and I just stuck with them and focused on progression and not chopping and changing things all the time or trying to find the perfect exercise. But what I did find was not all volume felt exactly the same. So I needed to use a different approach depending on which exercise I was using and how it was ordered throughout the week. So because shortened exercises are much easier to recover from, I had no problems just smashing those to bits. I would take it to failure and then even into little lengthened partials. But when it came to the more lengthened exercises, I was staying between 1 to 2 reps away from failure, just to make sure I wasn't making myself too sore or creating too much muscle damage. And I wanted to make sure I was doing a bit more lengthened work than shortened work, just to take advantage of these growth benefits we're seeing in studies. So I would split the week up, lengthened, shortened, lengthened, shortened, lengthened. But I did run into one final problem. I wanted to squeeze as much stimulus as possible out of my side delts each week, but I didn't want to spend my entire life in the gym. I had to keep increasing my volume as my side delts were adapting quite quickly, but I just noticed that my sessions were getting longer and longer and longer. So I started doing myo-rep sets, which are just a much more efficient way to get some volume in without having to rest in between sets. So you do your first set within your rep range, so say it's 10 to 15 reps, you land somewhere in there, you rest 10 to 15 seconds, you go again, you rest 10 to 15 seconds, you go again, and you repeat that process until you can't complete more than 3 reps. And what that allows you to do is approach failure multiple times in a short space of time with the same load you've been using on your working sets, but you don't have to rest in between a straight set. So when people ask me how I grew my side delts, they're waiting for some magical exercise or special workout routine, but it's actually much simpler than that. So if your side delts are a weak point for you, I would stop asking, where's the magic exercise that's going to change everything for me? And I'd start asking, are you actually training them as a priority? Because my side delts didn't grow when I found the perfect exercise. They grew when I actually started treating them like they mattered. And if this video surprised you that the perfect exercise wasn't actually the thing that made the difference, then I'd give this video a watch, because I talk through how people massively overestimate exercise selection and how you go about finding the best exercises for you as an individual.